Ah, boy, it's a beautiful day today. It's 46 degrees. Everything's thawed out. So I came out today and collected some more firewood. As you can see here, I got some firewood that I stacked up. What I've been doing, as you may know, is I've been coming out here and I've been splitting the firewood and testing each piece to make sure it's 20% or less. Now this is walnut. Walnut's very pretty. And walnut dries pretty quick. So, I don't know, let's say I got this last winter, which I think it was last winter, late winter. So it's nearly a year seasoned. I'm not having any problem with walnut. Every now and then I'll run into a piece that's wet. And what I think's happened is it got rained on or it's too close to the ground. But the problem is most of this is oak. And the oak, for the most part, isn't dry yet. I showed you that in a video a while back. Now this I got this last fall, pretty much. So this is over, gosh, this is coming up on 1.5 to 2 years old, depending on how you look at it. Most of this came from an oak tree down at the city park way down the road. And it fell down in the springtime, and I got it in the fall. So you can't really count it as 2 years because after it fell down, it was still one whole tree, and trees just don't dry out that well. Let's just call it 1.5 years, and it's not dry yet, not all of it. The thing that's holding it in is a lot of it is still bark covered, and the bark holds in the moisture quite well. I didn't know that when I stacked it, otherwise I would have split it. So I have pieces here that I could have split. It was kind of questionable, like this one here. I probably should have went ahead and split these. So those are not dry. Now this one, if I were to pull that out, it might be dry, but you can see that the bulk of it is just not been split. Well, what I found fascinating was this tree was a monster. It was probably 4 foot in diameter, maybe. It was huge. You may remember it. I wasn't able to split it with any of the equipment we had, the maul, any of it. So I had to use a chainsaw and cut it up into blocks like this. And you can see that it's still a huge block. I mean, the stove says 6 inches, no more than 6 inches. So, I mean, that's just under 6 inches. But I didn't think that would ever dry. Believe it or not, most of this, half of it, dried. This is probably 22-23%, so it's still a little wet. But over here, I got all kinds of it. Just, well, I mean, it looked like a big stack there, but there's still more in here is what I'm trying to say. And I split it 18, 17, 19%. So I'm really happy that I found some oak that is at the right moisture level. I think we had a little trimmer here the other day, and it's starting to fall over. It's gonna fall. You can see it's really leaning. And when it goes, that's gonna be a mess to pick up. But I'm just gonna let it go. Otherwise, I mean, it's twice as much work if I take it down and restack it. If it falls down on its own, then I only gotta restack it. I don't have to take it down. So I'm just gonna let it fall. But I think the trimmer shook it over, and it's not the whole thing, it's just this corner over here that looks like it's gonna go. This side looks okay. But this I got last spring. And he said he had it in blocks, I mean logs, you know, huge logs, in August. So this is about 1.5 years old also. And I tested a couple pieces out of this, and it's dry too. So the reason this is important to me, last year it got down into single digits and below 0 temperatures. Walnut doesn't provide enough heat. Well, it does. It would just use a lot of walnut. I can put a piece of walnut in, and just burn time, not cold time, but burn time may last an hour in the stove, whereas a piece of oak may last 2 to 3 hours in the stove. So I'd rather have oak on those really cold days. That way during the night, I can start the fire, put the oak in, and get up at 2 o'clock and put another piece of oak in and go back to bed. I only have to get up once, whereas if I were using walnut, first of all, I'd use a lot of it and I don't have enough of it. And I'd have to get up several times during the night to use it. So I really wanted some oak. So I found some, so we're in better shape. If or when that falls over down there, I'm going to start pulling from it also, testing it. Like I said, I pulled 2 or 3, but I'm afraid it's going to fall over. And I'll pull from it to see if it's testing well. If it's testing well, then I'll take some of that up there. I split this really small. You can see that most of it is split. So that might be dry. I got to get this up to the porch so the snow doesn't fall on it. I don't want it to get wet and have to dry. Somebody asked the question, if the wood gets rained on, does that affect the moisture content? So we're talking about 2 different things actually. We're talking about seasoned wood and wet wood. Seasoned wood takes a long time to season. I don't understand the science behind it, can't explain it well enough. This is just from my experience. But if I have a piece of seasoned wood and it gets wet from the rain, I can put it by the stove and within a couple hours it'll be dry again. As long as, I guess, it doesn't get saturated and soaked into the wood. But a lot of people don't even put tarps over their firewood. They don't cover it. Some say you do, some say you don't. The problem with covering it is you don't want to cover it where it flaps down like this, because that holds the moisture in. You want to keep it so the wind can blow through it. I don't know which way is the best, but I just feel better it being covered. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The tarps wear out, they start to leak, water drips on it anyways. I think that's what the problem with that piece of walnut I said earlier, that it tested high. I don't know why it was high. Might be wet, it was close to the ground. I'm gonna get the lawnmower out here and I'm gonna collect that all up and we're gonna put it on the porch. This piece right here has a lot of moisture at the bark level. Very wet. So that's going to have to sit around and dry next to the stove. Would not have been able to back up if I didn't have the chains on the back of the lawnmower tires. That's the only reason I can even use this lawnmower, is because of those chains. You can see I was just spinning up a storm, but it pulled right up. I recommend those chains to anybody that's going to do any off-gridding or homesteading with a lawnmower. Okay, so I'm gonna load it up here on the porch. I think you can see, yeah, I got some of that walnut. I got some oak in there that I was able to scratch through before. This is probably 2 or 3 days old already, sitting here on the porch, out of the, well, out from underneath the tarp. So I'm gonna load this up over here. I'm gonna leave that out here as long as I can, in case it gets cold. That way I got oak for the cold season, if there's a cold snap. I don't know if there will be. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why do I leave the lawnmower running while I'm loading and unloading? In the summertime I wouldn't, but in the wintertime I don't run it that much. So I want the battery to stay charged up. I want to get the oil and the fluids to cycle through. So I just want the engine to get good and hot. That's the only reason I run it. Yeah, it's a waste of gas, but I mean, I might use a gallon this whole winter. Well, it didn't fill up the porch as much as I had hoped, but it'll get there. I'll do another load probably tomorrow or the next day. The oak that I got over there that I had in that one stack, I put all over here. Then I mixed in the oak with the walnut over here from the first stack. Because you do want some oak, because what happens is when you light the fire, you want to get the fire nice and hot before you shut the door. So you let it flame up, you get it up to about, I let the stove get up to about 500 degrees. Well, walnut just really struggles to get the stove up to 500 degrees. So you put a piece of oak in there, the stove gets up to 500 degrees, and then you can shut the vent. It burns the rest of the night. It does pretty good. But I wanted to burn the walnut in the warmer days like today. Now on the other subject, which is the lawnmower, I've said this so many times, I really have enjoyed, I ran over a log here. I'm gonna have to, I didn't see that. The lawnmower with the chains on it has made all the difference in the world with this thing. I know I keep saying it, but I didn't expect it to make this big of a difference. I had a lawnmower, what, 10 years ago? It was a Murray, it was a little Walmart thing. I really liked it a lot. And I put chains on it. I had a homemade rack on the back that would hold 4 bricks, 4 concrete blocks, and it weighed it down quite a bit. And then I had a snowplow on the front end, and it really did an amazing job. But I always thought it was because I had the weight in the back, not so much the chains. But believe it or not, I think the chains do the majority of the work. Carried a full wagon of wood up a hill and backed up. You saw me struggling over there, backing up. So if you'll click this on the screen here, I'd really appreciate it. Take you over to the other channel, you get to watch a cool, funny video. I hope I can inspire you to have a good day like I did when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.